The royal palace glowed like 1,000 stars had fallen from the sky and landed upon its towers. Music drifted through the air, soft violins, graceful flutes, and the hum of laughter echoing through the grand hall. The golden carriage rolled to a stop before the grand staircase, and Cinderella stepped out, her heart fluttering like a bird in flight. The light from the chandeliers reflected in her gown, making her shimmer with every breath she took. She had never seen such beauty before: the marble floors, the glittering fountains, the guests in gowns of silk and velvet. Everything felt like a dream she never wanted to end. As she took her first step toward the ballroom, the crowd seemed to fall silent. The music paused. Every eye turned toward her. And for a moment, time itself stood still. The prince, standing near the staircase, looked up, and when his eyes met Cinderella's, something inside him changed. He had met countless young women that night, all dressed in finery, all eager for his attention. But none had the quiet grace, the warmth, the light that radiated from this mysterious young woman who had just entered the room. The king and queen exchanged smiles, whispering to each other. "Who is that girl?" the queen asked softly. "I do not know," said the king, "but I've never seen the prince look at anyone like that before." Cinderella walked slowly into the hall, her hands trembling slightly as she curtsied before the royal family. The prince stepped forward, his voice gentle but filled with awe. "May I have this dance?" he asked. For a moment, Cinderella couldn't speak. Then she smiled, her voice soft as a whisper. "Yes, Your Highness." The orchestra began to play again, and the prince led her to the center of the floor. As they danced, the crowd watched in amazement. The music swelled, the candles flickered, and the two of them moved as if they had known each other forever. The prince leaned closer. "You dance wonderfully," he said. Cinderella blushed. "Thank you, Your Highness. I'm afraid I've never danced in such a place before." "Then you must come often," he said with a smile. "I've been searching for someone who could make the world disappear just by walking into the room." Cinderella laughed softly, her heart filling with warmth. "You're too kind," she said, glancing around at the grand hall. "I'm afraid I don't belong in such a beautiful place." The prince shook his head. "You belong wherever your heart is kind. And from what I see, you belong here more than anyone." As they danced, Cinderella felt lighter than air. For the first time in her life, she wasn't thinking about chores, or ashes, or cruel words. She felt free. She felt seen. The other guests whispered among themselves, wondering who she could be. Anastasia and Drizella watched from the corner, fanning themselves furiously. "Who is she?" hissed Anastasia. "She's not nobility, I can tell." "But the prince hasn't looked away from her all night," whined Drizella. "Oh, mother, this isn't fair." The stepmother narrowed her eyes. "Patience, girls. Every mystery has an answer, and I intend to find out who she is." Meanwhile, the night continued to glow brighter. The prince and Cinderella walked through the palace gardens, lit by hundreds of tiny lanterns that hung from the trees. The air smelled of roses and jasmine. "It's so beautiful here," Cinderella said softly. "It reminds me of the garden I used to play in when I was a little girl." "You speak of it with such fondness," the prince said. "Where is this garden of yours?" Cinderella hesitated, lowering her eyes. "It's far away," she said, "but it's where I learned to believe in dreams." The prince smiled. "Then I am glad your dreams brought you here tonight." For a while, they simply walked, talking and laughing under the stars. Cinderella told him about her love of animals, her fondness for singing, and her belief that kindness could change the world. The prince listened intently, enchanted not just by her beauty, but by the gentle strength in her words. And then, far away, from the tower clock of the palace, a deep bell rang. Dong! Cinderella froze. Dong! Another strike echoed through the air. "Oh no," she whispered. "It's midnight." The prince looked puzzled. "Midnight? But the night is still young. Please, stay a little longer." "I can't," Cinderella cried, turning to run. "I must go." "Wait," the prince called. "At least tell me your name." But she was already hurrying down the marble steps, her gown glowing in the moonlight. The music stopped, guests gasping as she fled past them, her glass slippers tapping against the floor like raindrops. "Please," the prince shouted again, following her down the stairs. "I don't even know who you are." But as Cinderella reached the bottom, the clock struck 12. The sound echoed through the courtyard, dong, 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 and one by one, the magical spells began to fade. The horses turned back into mice, the coachman into lizards, and the grand carriage shrank into a pumpkin once more. Cinderella ran across the courtyard, feeling her gown dissolve into rags. But in her haste, one of her glass slippers slipped off her foot and clattered onto the steps. She turned for a split second, but the prince was already there, picking it up. "Wait," he called again, but Cinderella was gone, disappearing into the night as the last echo of the bell faded. The prince stood there, breathless, holding the glass slipper in his hand. He looked at it under the moonlight, delicate, shining, perfect. "I'll find you," he whispered. "No matter what it takes, I'll find you." Cinderella ran until she reached the quiet path that led to her home. The mice scurried beside her, squeaking in confusion, and the pumpkin rolled into the garden once again. She looked down at her torn dress and the single glass slipper still on her foot. "It's all over," she whispered sadly. It was just a dream. But as she sat on the stone bench under the moonlight, she realized she was smiling. For even if it had been only for a night, she had lived her dream, and it was something no one could ever take away from her. The next morning, the palace was in an uproar. The prince had declared that he would marry no one but the mysterious girl from the ball. The king and queen sent messengers across the kingdom, carrying the glass slipper. "Whichever lady this slipper fits," they proclaimed, "shall be the prince's bride." News of the search reached every corner of the land, and soon, to the stepmother's house. "The prince is searching for the girl who wore this glass slipper," Anastasia cried. "It must be me." "No, it was me," argued Drizella. "He looked at me twice." The stepmother smiled coldly. "Quiet, both of you. We shall see who the slipper fits. Prepare yourselves, my daughters. This is our chance to change our fortunes." Cinderella listened quietly from the kitchen, her heart beating fast. "The prince is searching for the girl," she whispered. "Could he really mean me?" Gus and Jack squeaked excitedly, nodding their tiny heads. "Oh, my friends," she said softly, "if only I could believe it." And while she went back to her chores, trying to calm her racing heart, a royal carriage was already making its way down the lane. The prince's search was leading him closer and closer to the very house where Cinderella lived. But that, dear listener, is a story for the next night, when the glass slipper finds its rightful home and love proves stronger than any spell. Before you fall asleep, remember, if you enjoyed this magical part of Cinderella's story, tap the like button, subscribe to Little Dreamland Tales, and ring the bell so you don't miss episode 4, where the prince's search for his mysterious princess will finally come to an end. Sweet dreams, little dreamers. And always remember, dreams really do come true when you keep believing.